this week. The agency says it's about a year behind schedule because of cost issues. Some neighbors say they don't believe this will fix anything, but Temple is hopeful it will.
Something has to be done because this is like somebody's going to die, and that just can't happen. Like
that was Tyler Finger report.
In the background, what was your reaction to this news?
China's return on Huawei looks like what America's return on an aircraft carrier is, which is to say it costs a lot of money. You're not going to make that money back, but you're going to project power and be able to have your way around the world in a way that you couldn't have otherwise. So I think if they're making this chip using this, I believe it's called the N+2 technique, you can squeeze out a few usable, workable chips, show it off to everybody, but it is not a commercial solution.
And I want to zoom in on Huawei specifically. What makes it different? Like, what does it mean when a company is state-run in China?
Ren Zhengfei is not a bureaucrat. He is a really sharp business manager, and he's running the company as a private company. But in China, if you're any company, especially a big and important one, you're under the thumb of the CCP. And as I think your viewers know, that means that while he's not taking his management direction from them, it's kind of like a board of directors. They're saying directionally, here's what you have to do. We're willing to give you this support, but here's what you have to do because your ultimate mission is, as Huawei's name says, to be for China.
Given these tensions between the U.S. and China, where do you see U.S.-China ties going from here?
I don't think they're going to get better. I think Chairman Xi is operating in an echo chamber now where his advisors, the idea that one of his advisors would pull him aside and say, I think you're making a grave error in how you're approaching this. They watched Hu Jintao get dragged out by the arms, by security personnel. So if that could happen to him, if Jack Ma could be canceled, have his business school shut down, have his IPOs terminated, and now be, I don't know where he is, playing golf in Thailand or something. I don't know that anyone's willing to tell Chairman Xi the truth about these approaches, and he may be making some decisions that are not even in China's own interests here.
Online resellers will explain what they're now asking retailers like Ticketmaster and StubHub to do when we come back.
Plus, a tipping controversy is brewing tonight after a restaurant imposes a mandatory gratuity fee that some customers say is just too high. We'll take a closer look after the break.
Former President Donald Trump is also planning to visit Detroit to rally with auto workers on Wednesday instead of attending the second Republican presidential primary debate. David.
Well, Christine, we are dealing with the operations in Kenya. It has been more than 22 years now since the 9/11 terror attacks, and the New York City Fire Department says it reached a tragic milestone over the weekend.
2 more firefighters passed away from illnesses related to their work at Ground Zero. That means 343 firefighters have now died after the attacks took place, which is the exact same number of firefighters that died on 9/11. Now, union leaders are calling on Congress to keep the World Trade Center health program fully funded. Otherwise, they say the consequences would be dire.
The way the bill was structured, we have to continually go back for funding. The World Trade Center health program estimates their future funding need, and we make a push in Congress to try to get that funding.
The union says it's concerned the deaths will continue if the funding runs out. Embattled Senator Bob Menendez is pushing back tonight as the growing number of lawmakers on Capitol Hill are calling on him to resign after he was indicted on federal corruption charges.
The New Jersey Democrat is accused of using his role in Congress to benefit 3 businessmen in New Jersey and the Egyptian government. A federal prosecutor say in exchange, Menendez and his wife received hundreds of thousands of dollars in bribes, which included gold bars, cash, and a luxury convertible. But the senator insists the cash is his and says he will not give up his seat in the Senate.
These were monies drawn from my personal savings account based on the income that I have lawfully derived over those 30 years. When all the facts are presented, not only will I be exonerated, but I still will be the New Jersey's senior senator.
Menendez, who's up for re-election next year, is already facing a challenger in the Democratic primary. New Jersey Congressman Eddie Kim says he feels compelled to run in light of that indictment.
Still ahead on Fox 5 News at 10.
To God Almighty for what He gives us, because our rights don't come from kings. They don't come from a Congress or a Parliament. They come from God Almighty. The men that crafted that document, they did it. Listen to this. They crafted a document called the Declaration of Independence before they were independent. Signed it, sealed it, and delivered it to the most powerful king on earth. Before the king said they were free, they declared themselves to be free. That is audacious. That is courage. That is where we come from. And I believe that's why God heard from heaven and said, you know what, this nation's got some problems. I know they got some problems. They got slavery. I know they got some inequalities and they got some struggles, but I can get behind this nation. And at every turn, I will be there to make sure that whatever problem they face, they will come through. He has. He's been right there with us, holding our hands the entire time. Why? Because there's still a regiment of people in this nation holding on to his hand. Right here in this room, this summit that we're at right now, what we believe in as patriotic Americans who believe in God. Patriotism is not dead. Faith is not dead. And you can best believe God is not dead. And He's still at work in America.
Welcome back to America's Hope. I'm Kelly Wright. I'm joined now by Katie Talento. And we have an inside joke about your name, but we'll leave that alone right now. I do want to ask you, from a more serious perspective, what is going on in America as it relates to health and insurance? People are, it's a pocketbook issue. And it may not even come up during the campaign.
Oh, it will.
It will? Okay, that's promising. So what has to be said and done?
Yeah, so most people in America have had to delay care because they didn't have enough money to pay for medical care. Many people in America can't afford to use the insurance that they have because they have a deductible that exceeds their savings. And the Wall Street Journal just reported last week that insurance rates, premiums, are going up by 6.5% next year, and that's higher than any increase in the past 10 years. So, early in this century, in the early 2000s, premiums went up very high, very quickly. And then they kind of stabilized a little bit, but now we're starting to see that increase happen again. And what happens is the healthcare swamp, as we called it when I was in the White House, the healthcare swamp, the supply chain for healthcare is owned by Wall Street. And they have interests and incentives that are misaligned with the interests and incentives of the American family.
You mentioned that you were working with the White House. What did you do in that role? And was there anything you could have done to prevent what we're now experiencing?
So President Trump did a lot, and he really did. I mean, of course, the first thing that we tried to do was repeal and replace the ACA, and that went down in the Senate. So I think the ACA is here to stay, and it's got a number of subsidies to, make insurance more affordable, I guess, if it could be, for some people. But most people get their insurance on the job. And one of the things that President Trump did, and when I was there, you asked what my role is. I was a health advisor on the Domestic Policy Council, so lead health advisor there. So one of the things that President Trump talked about were drug prices and also secret healthcare prices. It's the only industry where you don't know the price in advance. And by the way, the price that you pay is set by parties that you're not a contract to. You're not party to their contract between each other. So the hospital and the insurance carrier are in a contract together setting the prices that you pay, but you're not a party to that contract. So it's the only industry on earth like that where you don't know what you're going to pay in advance. You get a bill months after the fact, and that bill could be completely different based on who's paying. So, you get the same procedure from the same doctor at the same hospital, and you pay something totally different, orders of magnitude different, based on whether you're a cash pay patient, you're insured on the job, you're uninsured. All of these different options for healthcare lead to different prices. And that's just not a free market. We Republicans I think for many years, we were knee-jerk defenders of free market in healthcare. We can't regulate the healthcare industry because, we don't want to mess with the free market. Healthcare is neither free nor a market, okay? There's no prices you can't know in advance. That's not a market. So there's no price competition in this so-called market. And because of that, that's why prices are going up, because they can. The main driver of price gouging in healthcare are hospitals. They're so-called charity hospitals, tax-exempt hospitals, non-profit hospitals, and they're gouging the American consumer, and they're pretending to be charities, and they're engaging in predatory collections of many, many Americans. 1 in 5 Americans is in medical debt right now. Half of all debt is medical debt. So, this is unsustainable, and it's one of the reasons people are looking for alternatives to insurance, like healthcare sharing ministries, or there are other purchasing co-ops and really other important innovations out there. Even employers are starting to use innovative insurance products and services, like firing their carrier and firing their pharmacy solution and using independent vendors that don't have these misaligned incentives, where they're all in league together to help their shareholders.
And how is that working? Because that's a new way of doing things. Is there more integrity in that? And when you find that people from different backgrounds but the same faith, they're more like-minded in trying to care for each other. Is that working?
That's exactly right. And actually, these aren't new. Healthcare sharing ministries have been around for a generation, for decades. And they've grown a lot because in the past 10 years, the Affordable Care Act exempted members of healthcare sharing ministries from that individual mandate to buy insurance that everyone was under. And we're still under, actually. It hasn't been repealed. And so these guys, I think of it like a homeschool co-op for healthcare. Christians are used to doing things together. I think if you come at a healthcare sharing ministry from outside the faith community, it seems really risky and kind of shadowy. Why would you not want a contract guaranteeing coverage, right? Why would you rely on these, fellow believers? But we're used to relying on believers. We're used to doing that. As a pregnant woman, you can bank on the fact that you're going to get 5 casseroles delivered to your house. That community is reliable, and we're used to counting on each other.
Yeah, and that's good, because that's actually helping out to actively care for each other, which is really treating each other the way you want to be treated. It's following the golden rule. But it's not just for Christians, it's for other people who want to join in and buy in. Is that correct?
Well, most healthcare sharing ministries are for Christians.
Okay.
There is a Jewish healthcare sharing ministry, and there are also secular healthcare sharing organizations that are not based around religious beliefs. They're based around ethical beliefs.
Those who do not adapt to this fourth industrial revolution will find themselves ousted and will lose. They will lose everything, including their freedom. In short, Klaus Schwab is threatening the head of government of the 20 most industrialized nations in the world to carry out the programmatic points of the Great Reset in their nation. This goes far beyond the pandemic. It is a global coup d'etat against which it is essential that people rise up and that the still healthy organ of state start an international juridical process. The threat is imminent and serious, since the World Economic Forum is capable of carrying out its subversive project, and those who govern nations have all become either enslaved or blackmailed by this international mafia. In the light of these statements, and those of others no less delusional than Yuval Noah Harari, Schwab's advisor, we understand how the pandemic first served as a trial balloon for imposing controls, coercive measures, curtailing individual freedoms, and increasing unemployment and poverty. The new step will have to be carried out by means of economic and energy crisis, which are instrumental to the establishment of a synarchic government in the hands of the global elite.